Hi, this is Hitman SOS, and this is the fourth and final part of my wrestlers who have only ever had one action figure video. So this is the, I got a lot of figures to cram into this part. This is the last installment of, this series of videos that I'm going to be doing. I got a whole bunch of figures to show you, and I just decided what the hell, I'm going to cram them all into this one last video. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. First, I'm going to show you WWF Hasbro head shrinkers figures. As far as I know, this is the only version of the head shrinkers that there ever was. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm no expert, but you've got, I think this is Fatu, and I think this is Samu. So Fatu later on became Rikishi, and Samu, I don't know what happened to Samu. Maybe somebody out there can tell me, but yeah, so Rikishi has had multiple action figures. Samu, not so sure about Samu, but the head shrinkers as a tag team, I believe this may be the only head shrinkers figures that there ever was. I don't know. Okay, next we got Hasbro figures again. We got the Smoking Guns, we got Bart Gunn, and we got Billy Gunn. So Billy Gunn, again, just like Rikishi, later on become more successful. Billy Gunn's had multiple action figures. Bart Gunn, not really sure what happened to Bart Gunn. But again, the Smoking Guns as a tag team, collectively, this could be the only Smoking Guns figures that there ever was. So although many Billy Gunn figures have been released, this is probably the only Smoking Guns Billy Gunn there ever was. Okay, we got Bastian Booger. So I can barely remember this guy. This was the time when I kind of stopped watching wrestling. I'm the oldest of three brothers, so my two youngest brothers were still watching wrestling when I stopped watching it because I thought it sucked. So they actually remember this guy, whereas I don't. But he was kind of one of those jobber type of characters. Never really had any good matches or any significant matches. He used to come to the ring like eating like chocolate and or ice cream and I don't know, shit like that. But yeah, just one of those kind of like crappy gimmick type guys. But really awesome that they made an action figure of him, and quite possibly the only action figure that there ever will be of Bastian Booger. Okay, we got the Fabulous Moolah. So I don't really know much about Fabulous Moolah. She was one of those characters that was around way before my time, from the, I don't know, maybe 60s, 70s, maybe even 50s, I don't know. We got Mae Young here as well, who was probably from the same era. I do remember Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young from the late 90s as a couple of kind of old ladies. It was just kind of a comedy thing at the time, but obviously when they were younger they were a lot more great. I know Fabulous Moolah, I don't know if she was the first ever women's champion or something like that. She was I know there's supposed to be something great about the Fabulous Moolah, but like I say, I'm not too knowledgeable about this era. Mae Young, not really sure about Mae Young. Not sure what she really achieved, but yeah, I guess there wasn't a lot of female wrestlers in those days, so for these ladies to become successful at all, I guess was quite an achievement. Okay, here we have Tiny Lister as Zeus. This is Jack's Classic Superstars figure. This again, I believe, is maybe the only Zeus figure that there ever was. So I do remember Zeus. I do remember him being pretty, looking pretty big and badass. One of those guys that was kind of brought in to be an opponent for Hulk Hogan. He was in the No Holds Barred movie, which I probably haven't seen for about 25 years, so I barely remember it. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool character. You know, obviously he wasn't much of a wrestler because he wasn't around for very long. But, you know, cool to have an action figure of Zeus. Okay, here we have Peter Maivia. This is The Rock's grandfather. This is again a Jakks Classic Superstars figure. Came in a 3-pack. It was actually a Rock family pack. Came with you had Peter Maivia, who was like the grandfather, Rocky Johnson, who was the father, and then The Rock, who was the son. So yeah, this is I don't know a damn thing about Peter Maivia apart from the fact that he was The Rock's grandfather. I'm assuming that there's something great about him because you know, I have heard a little bit about him. You know, I believe he's Samoan. You know, he has this kind of islander type of look about him with the, I'm assuming this is supposed to be like flowers around his neck or something. He's got the little skirt thing. He's got got some pretty good detail. He's got like the tattoo. If I pull his skirt down, you can see that he's got like the flowers on his trunks and like tattoos on his legs. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is probably the first Peter Maivia action figure that there's probably ever been. You know, when this guy was wrestling, there probably was no such thing as wrestling action figures. Okay, so next we got the Von Erichs. So anybody who knows anything about wrestling should have heard of the Von Erichs. We've got Kerry Von Erich and we got Kevin Von Erich. So you know, I do have a couple of Texas Tornado action figures, but Texas Tornado as Kerry Von Erich, one half of the Von Erichs. I'm not sure if they've ever done that before, and Kevin Von Erich, I'm not sure if they've done Kevin Von Erich in the past. So these are Mattel Legends figures. You know, obviously the Von Erichs are a famous wrestling family. Kind of you know, tragic that just about all of them are dead now. I believe Kevin is the only one that's still alive. And it's kind of sad that as great as these guys are, they're kind of not as well remembered as they should be, which is partly due to the fact that Kevin didn't want to sell the kind of whole Von Erich wrestling thing to Vince McMahon. So, but you know, as he said, that was all that he had left of his family, so it's understandable. The big cat Ernie Ladd. I don't know a damn thing about the big cat Ernie Ladd. This is a Jakks Classic Superstars figure. One of those guys who I believe wrestled for the WWF before Vince McMahon Jr. took over, and you know, it became the WWF. But yeah, don't know a damn thing about him. Not sure if he's had action figures before. Probably not. You know, again, somebody out there will tell me, and like I say, I don't know a damn thing about him. Maybe somebody out there can tell me some kind of story about him. I don't know. Okay, here we have Killer Kowalski, again, a Jakks Classic Superstars figure. So this is the cool thing about the Jakks Classic Superstars. They kind of released all these kind of figures of wrestlers that I never really heard of before. So Killer Kowalski's one of those real old school guys. He was, I believe, one of those guys who was kind of like a heel, kind of like a character back in the days when wrestlers were not so much kind of characters as they were just kind of you know, kind of wrestlers. Like, you know, this guy actually had a bit of a personality and to his character, and made people really believe that he was evil, and you know, but you know, apparently quite a good guy, a tough guy. But Killer Kowalski, probably the only action figure he's ever had. I'm not sure. Okay, next we have the Genius, also known as Leaping Lanny Poffo. The cool thing about this figure, it's almost like a 2-in-1 figure because you can take his robe off. It's kind of hard for me to do with one hand, but he does have his wrestling gear on underneath there, so you can have him as Leaping Lanny Poffo or the Genius. Not really sure 100%, but this could be the one and only Genius figure that there's ever been. If not, it's definitely probably the only Leaping Lanny Poffo figure that there's ever been. Okay, next we got Ivan Putski, Jakks Classic Superstars. Don't know a thing about Ivan Putski, to be honest. He's one of those real old school guys. Probably wrestled before I was even born. He has a kind of Polish sounding name, so Polish guy maybe. But the fact that he's from the time that he's from, this is quite possibly the first action figure that he may have ever had. Okay, next we got the Rock and Roll Express. I believe these guys were around before the Rockers, and the Rockers kind of ripped off their gimmick and became more successful than them. They're a pretty good tag team as far as I know. So you got Ricky Morton and this guy, I always forget his name, something Gibson I think. Terry Gibson, or I can't remember his name. I'm sure one of you guys out there will remind me what his name is. Something Gibson I think. This is a Jakks Classic Superstars 2-pack, and I do remember these two guys being in WCW when I first started watching wrestling, but I don't think they were the Rock and Roll Express. Pretty cool figures, and quite possibly the only Rock and Roll Express figures that there's ever been. Okay, next we have Brother Love, another Jakks Classic Superstars figure. This guy was portrayed by, I think it's Bruce Pritchard, who I don't really know who he is, but I know he does something behind the scenes in the WWE. You know, he's been employed by the WWE for a long time. I'm not sure if he still works for them, but he was until fairly recently. You know, he's one of those guys, he always kind of talks on the DVD documentaries and things like that. But this could be the one and only Brother Love figure that there's ever been. I'm not sure. Next we got Larry Zbyszko. So I'm pretty sure there was an old Remco Larry Zbyszko figure, which was kind of an obscure line of figures. Some people might not even know that they existed. They kind of look like knockoff figures. But this is probably the first Larry Zbyszko figure from a kind of significant line of action figures that are kind of, you know, internationally known. Yeah, I'm not sure if there, apart from the Remco figure, if there's ever been any other Larry Zbyszko figures. Here we have, this is the Midnight Express. You got Bobby Eaton, another Jakks Classic Superstar, and you got Stan Lane. So I don't really know much about the Midnight Express. I do remember beautiful Bobby Eaton from WCW, and this is actually a really good likeness of him. You know, even the body type as well that they used is, you know, quite accurate. Because Jakks a lot of the time would give the guys big muscular physiques, even if they weren't in particularly great shape. So yeah, we got the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane. Okay, this is another Jakks Classic Superstars. This is Dangerous Danny Davis, the wrestling referee. So don't really know much about him. I know that he's a referee, and he did used to wrestle as well. He didn't wrestle in his referee gear. You know, he had his you know, his own wrestling attire, and he was managed by Jimmy Hart as well. So this is probably the one and only Dangerous Danny Davis figure. Next we got Harvey Wippleman, who I remember as a manager in the WWF from the kind of early to mid 90s. I do remember him managing Elegante, or Giant Gonzalez, should I say. This figure actually came in a 2-pack with Giant Gonzalez actually. This is the Jakks Classic Superstar, and quite possibly the one and only Harvey Wippleman figure there's ever been. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Next we got Outlaw Ron Bass. I don't know a damn thing about Ron Bass, but this is, I believe he was in the WWF in the kind of mid 80s maybe. Pretty cool figure, I guess. You know, it's got his cowboy hat, the lasso. But yeah, I don't know a thing about him. And quite possibly the one and only Outlaw Ron Bass figure that there ever has been. Okay, next we got the original Sheik. This is the uncle of Sabu. He's known as the original Sheik because he was around before the Iron Sheik. He was known as the Sheik. Again, I don't know a thing about him. Probably wrestled before I was even born. But most likely the only action figure that this guy's ever had. And here we have Luna Vachon. So I remember her from the kind of early to mid 90s in the WWF. Kind of a crazy woman. She had all these tattoos on the side of her head. You know, she played this kind of almost like a crazy psycho type of character. I do remember her being on screen the girlfriend of Bam Bam Bigelow. Pretty cool figure, you know, Jakks Classic Superstars. And not sure if she's ever had a figure before, and I don't think she's had one since. So quite possibly the only Luna Vachon figure there's ever been. Okay, the next figure I'm going to show you, we've got, this is Handsome Jimmy Valiant. I don't know a damn thing about Handsome Jimmy Valiant. Again, he's one of those guys who wrestled way before I even started watching. You know, maybe he was still wrestling when I was a kid, but I just, you know, I never saw him, don't remember him, don't know a damn thing about him. I got this figure dirt cheap. You know, this is a Jakks Classic Superstars figure. Bought it from a local store. And because the figure was so cheap and it looked good for the money, I got it. So Handsome Jimmy Valiant, and this could be the one and only Handsome Jimmy Valiant figure there's ever been. If anybody knows any interesting facts about Handsome Jimmy Valiant, feel free to let me know, because I don't know a damn thing about this guy. Okay, next we got Kevin Sullivan. This is another Jakks Classic Superstars figure. Again, Kevin Sullivan, I know that he was in WCW in the late 90s. Not that I remember ever really seeing him or taking any notice of him. Just one of those guys I just didn't give a crap about. He was married to, you know, Nancy, you know, Chris Benoit's wife, Nancy Benoit, before she was married to Chris Benoit. But yeah, Kevin Sullivan, you know, don't know a damn thing about him. Never particularly liked him, you know. But yeah, is this the only Kevin Sullivan figure there's ever been? I'm not sure. Okay, next we got Andy Kaufman. So you don't usually associate Andy Kaufman with wrestling, but this figure did come in a 2-pack with Jerry the King Lawler. This is a Jakks Classic Superstars figure, and Jakks did do 2 Andy Kaufman figures, so this is not the one and only Andy Kaufman figure there ever was, because Jakks did do 2. But basically, the second figure was just a re-release of this same figure. The second one did come with a robe, which I would have preferred that one, but because I'd already had this one, I didn't really want another Andy Kaufman, so I didn't buy the single release of him. And yeah, unusual to have an Andy Kaufman wrestling figure. So apart from the 2 Jakks figures, probably unlikely that there was ever a Andy Kaufman wrestling figure before. And here we have Hulk Hogan, who, so Hulk Hogan has probably had hundreds of action figures, but this is kind of a debut Hulk Hogan. Not sure if there's ever been an action figure of Hulk Hogan based on this particular time, with this particular attire, this was when Hulk Hogan was actually a heel as opposed to a babyface, which after seeing Hulk Hogan during the 80s, it's hard to believe that he ever was a heel. So yeah, a kind of unusual version of Hulk Hogan, and this could be the only action figure of Hulk Hogan from this time period in this this kind of attire. And again, the last figure I'm going to show you is Triple H. So this is not really a one-off type of figure, but I wanted to show this one just because this was some kind of exclusive. This was a Jakks Classic Superstars figure, I think, or maybe not a Classic Superstars, but it was a Jakks figure. And again, Triple H has had many action figures. Personally, I've never liked Triple H, but you know, I quite like this figure because it says Vince likes cock. So the reason I showed this in this video is because it's unusual for you know, toys or wrestling figures or any kind of action figures to have these kind of controversial slogans on their t-shirts. You know, Mattel would never release a figure with a t-shirt like this, I don't think. Not that it's all that offensive. It says Vince likes, and it has a picture of a cock. So yeah, Vince likes cock, and it is a DX t-shirt. So so yeah, not that like I say, not that I'm a fan of Triple H or anything, but yeah, this figure always stood out to me just because I loved the t-shirt, and unusual for an action figure to have you know, a slogan like that on their t-shirt. So that was the fourth and final part of my wrestlers who have only ever had one action figure, or unusual versions of wrestlers who maybe have had many action figures. I do apologize for having to rattle through this as quickly as I can, but I still had so many figures to show you guys, and I just wanted to get it all done in one final video. So I just want to say to everybody out there, thank you for watching.